As engineers, one of the activities that we need to become proficient at is visualization. Being able to see things moving around in our head. For example, if I took the piano and I wanted to put it through that door, I should be able to visualize that it's going to fit through the door in some of its orientations and not in others. Today I'd like all of us to practice some visualization. I want you to visualize 5 years into the future. And at this point, you're working on an engineering team for your company, and you're being asked to solve an extremely complex problem that's going to take an immense amount of creativity. Now I want you to close your eyes and visualize a meeting that you are attending. This meeting is taking place in a really nice conference room. And around the table is your team. So we're visualizing, take a look at the walls. Are there any windows? What color are the walls? Look at the floor. Look at the chairs. Look at the table. Now I want you to look around the table and look at the other 5 people on your team. Look them in the eye. Look around again and give them some names. You can open your eyes now. And I'd like to ask you some questions. I don't need answers, but I'd like to ask you some questions about your team. How many people on your team were wearing religious headgear? How many people on your team were white? How many people on your team were brown or black? How many people on your team were men? How many people on your team were women? How many people on your team were transgender? How many people on your team were in a wheelchair? I want you to think about the answers to that, and we'll come back to them later in this talk. My IRE talk this year is on equity, inclusion, and diversity. These are 3 difficult words to define to oneself. I challenge you to do it on your drive home today. It's hard to do. And so I did what any good IRE person would do. I went and got some definitions off the web. So I'm going to start with equity. We learned last week that we should start with why. I believe equity is our why. Equity is equal access, equitable opportunities, regardless of our color or our gender or our parents or our socioeconomic status. Equity is what's right. People often ask me, why do you like to go to IRE? Why do you drive an hour and 15 minutes every day, each way, to go to IRE? And one of the reasons is because I love being around you. Your generation of people, more than any other that I've ever been exposed to, embraces equity, embraces opportunity for everyone. I was exposed to my grandparents' generation, my parents' generation, my own, and 1 or 2 between you and me. And by far and above, you tend to embrace equity. In our profession, we need to embrace equity. One of our values at IRE is service and protection. If we're going to serve our society and protect them, then we have to serve all of society and protect all of society. And we do this through an appreciation for, an understanding of, and a drive to equity. Inclusion at first glance, is actually the one over which we have the most control. We can be inclusive. These are actions that we get to take. We can be kind. We can include everyone. We can respect everyone. We can use the rule of 1 over X. We can live the rule of 1 over X. But at the next level, inclusion becomes just a little bit harder. We've all learned, both through media and here at IRE in recent years, about unconscious bias. Unconscious bias is when our own actions violate our own beliefs. When we, because of the society and the norms and the media, we do things that we disagree with. And so at that point, inclusion becomes harder because even at our own level, there are some barriers. There are some other barriers to inclusion. A lot of companies have hiring practices that are not inclusive. A lot of laws are not inclusive. We have, at IRE, one of our values to be inclusivity and professional courage. And so when we see non-inclusive actions, we need to have the courage to figure out the appropriate way to act. And then diversity. I have struggled with this word more than any other word in my life. I have not liked the idea of diversity at different points in my life. I have not understood the word diversity for about the last 5 years of my life. To me, diversity sounds like divide, to separate, and I don't like that. I like inclusion. But when I did the old IRE trick and I looked up the definition of diversity, guess what I found? It's not about divide. It's simply a recognition of difference. There are a diversity of colors of jelly beans in the jar. There are a diversity of kinds of cars on the road. Diversity simply means different. And a diverse group is made up of people who are different. Well, I still, in most of my professional career, did not like the meaning behind diversity. The meaning behind diversity to me was assemble a group of people who look different simply to do so. And don't worry at all about the quality of them as compared to a homogeneous group. And then the research started to pile up. The research is actually very, very compelling today. And that research is that homogeneous groups are not as creative, are not as able to solve complex problems as diverse groups are. In other words, diversity isn't just some great idea, some thing to do for equity. It is something to do for better engineering solutions. Now, why does diversity improve a team's creativity? Well, there are a variety of reasons, but let me focus in on one. One of those reasons is that when we are around people who don't look like us, we're uncomfortable. And when we're uncomfortable, we think more critically. That discomfort makes us more creative. That discomfort makes us better engineers. Now, as I said, there are other reasons that the diverse group of people will outperform the homogeneous group of people. And we're not talking about homogeneous only being one kind of person. The homogeneous group that isn't as talented as the diverse group could be white, straight, able-bodied men. That homogeneous group will not perform as well as a diverse group. Or that diverse group could be black, gay, mobility-impaired women. That homogeneous group will not perform as well as a diverse group. There is not anything about the idea of diversity in engineering that is about picking on one group or another. It's bigger than that. It's better than that. It's about us seeking to serve and protect society equitably with the best possible solutions. So, here's the call to action for everyone in the room. We need to continue to strive for equity. We need to continue to be more inclusive. We need to search for our own unconscious biases and uncover them and make them go from the implicit to the explicit. We need to have the professional courage to act. And we need to embrace diversity as a good thing for us. Thank you.